Okay, so it seems like recently we've been covering this list, which has been going pretty popular over on Twitter lately, which is a bunch of VTubers, which essentially, yeah, this person, mbinted, obviously being like a parody account of nbinted, made a list of based VTubers, essentially VTubers that they liked. And yeah, obviously this blew up pretty massively with them including a lot of different kind of VTubers, obviously like Kiosha, filian, chachayourvmom, all of those. They ended up making even more of a list. I don't know where the extended list has gone, but there was a huge list. It was about like 50 people on it. And of course, I did find it pretty interesting because, of course, a lot of people found it just pretty funny and whatever. But some people were not happy, calling it a free block list, which blew up as well. And it seems like a lot of VTubers have been responding to that with people like Darling Straub saying, go ahead. People saying only your demographic do things like this. There's a good based and not so good based. What kind is it? Why is Chacha on there? Obviously, they're going after filian as well. So again, I did find it quite funny, and it seems that many people have been clowning on that. But recently, there's been another list which has come out, which I thought was quite funny, and has been blowing up in the VTubing space from this person called Flubber Jiggles. That's a crazy name to have, but of course they respond to the list itself with a doc spreadsheet, which I thought was pretty funny. And of course this is blown up massively with it getting over 356,000 views. But why has this got over 356,000 views? Well, it's because it's a list of a Chud versus a woke VTubers, which I thought was quite funny. Of course this is like the kind of different levels that you have here, being woke, lean woke, unclear, lean chud, presumed woke. So again, I thought it was pretty insane. And well, lots of people have been reacting to this in the sense of, being added to this list and, who is on this list and what they're kind of, I guess, assumed as. And there's a lot of VTubers on here, like not even like people who are like controversial or anything. They could be like the least controversial VTuber out there and they're still featured on here. It doesn't really matter. They've essentially just gone and added every single VTuber that they have heard of and, put them under a thing. Now, obviously, some of them, they have like different bits of evidence to back them up here. Some of them, of course, they don't know. And I do think that's a very important part to point out here. Obviously, they're labeling people as woke and chud and whatever. I think it is very important to say that, some of this is a little bit inaccurate, I'm going to say. And obviously, I think that's to be expected whenever you have a list this big and you're essentially going off like your thoughts. So again, I think that is, it is just like bound to happen. But you can see there's a ton of different, VTubers all featured on this list, and many people have been reacting to this. And again, they say size does not matter. There's people with single-digit CCV in there, saying some of you have some real fuck-ass link trees. Finding the link to your Twitch should not be like a Where's Waldo. Is that okay? I made a form because this is getting too much. So people are now like filling out forms to try and be on it, which I thought was pretty interesting. Obviously, Leaflet there saying good list, saying surprising. So, Chud, I do like the sound of that. Obviously, you've got Smuggalana saying, honestly, kind of impressive. Someone hired this guy to be a wokeologist of VTubing. Now, we will go into why they probably shouldn't be hired as that in a second. But obviously, Banana Juju saying, where my Chud's at. Powder, for the give. Riri said, Chud, I like that. I said, what changed me back to unclear? I feel way cooler and mysterious that way. So again, that's pretty crazy. Said, what do I smell like? Said, we're so bag boys. Which I think is pretty funny. Me when I find other woke VTubers. So there's been people from both sides, by the way, that have been kind of commenting on this. It's not just like all like a sea of in quotation marks chuds or woke people. Again, I don't even think that all of them are that, but obviously some people are embracing it, right, in the replies. You got like Rev here saying total chud victory. They put so yeah, many people have actually come across this list, and I did think it was quite funny. Now I think where it gets a little bit kind of interesting is like, for example, like Neve here, who is a VTuber, not someone that I follow over on Twitter, and essentially they say this is kind of hilarious, not gonna lie. Do I really come off as slightly woke? Because apparently they've listed them there as a lean woke, which obviously is like slightly woke. And I do think it is pretty interesting, because from what I've seen, I don't think that's the case at all. So and obviously they say this is kind of hilarious. Do I really come across like that? Obviously saying like, hey, I don't think I'm that either. Like, she's even like self-admitting that too, which I think is quite funny. And obviously it tells you how kind of inaccurate this list is and how kind of feels crafty it is, I guess. Like, this is like kind of, you know, based off of their feelings and based off of like just looking at someone's Twitter page maybe for like 2 seconds, because of course they haven't really done, you know, extensive research into every single person on this list. And as I said, I think that is a problem with you know, how many people are on this list. You know, they've just kind of gone, okay, let's just post it, rather than actually like looking into it and like making sure that they've got it right. But at the end of the day, it's not like a, you know, what you call it, like some like program that's like set to, you know, be perfect and it needs to be perfect. Of course, it's just like some dude making a list over on spreadsheets. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much. But obviously, if some people are using this as some kind of block list or some kind of weird list to kind of judge people, I think, you know, just think about it for a second, because of course there are going to be some mistakes in there. There are going to be some things that are just completely wrong. So yeah, obviously that isn't very good for some VTubers that maybe get labeled in completely the wrong way. And that could also be in the other case, right? There could also be some people that get labeled as a, you know, lean chud or whatever, but they're actually the other way around, which I think obviously is very interesting. And of course, as I said, you know, some of these are backed up with evidence, which I think is fair enough, but also some of them are not. So, you know, that's like, it's the ones that are not that you should probably be a little bit worried about in terms of you know, whether it's correct or not. Obviously, there's been some people as well correcting that in the comments somewhere. I did see it, but again, they're saying, you know, I was not expecting to be on there. To be honest, I don't even know what I am. I said, may I ask what's the deciding factor between presumed and lean? I said presumed is because I don't want that to be presumptuous when it comes to large VTubers. So they're just scared of large VTubers, essentially. Saying, whoa, dang, this is a big list. They said, it's not nearly big enough. They said, is this a list of VTubers you watch specifically, or just the ones that pop up on your timeline often? They say, this is every single EN VTuber in existence that I'm aware of that isn't FaZe Connect, HoloLive, or Nijisanji. Saying, not me saying here to guess how I'll be classified. They say, fill out the form. So that's an amazing statement of unemployment. Imagine having so much time to put all of that together. Obviously, they say do an update on Tricky, which obviously this was about the Donald Trump thing that happened a while ago. Obviously saying remember to shoot your shot, surely you won't miss. Which obviously again, I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't pay attention to that situation, but of course, you know, that's what they're claiming there. And obviously, it seems that some people are correcting other things. So you can tell how, like, you know, I guess unrealistic sometimes this list can be. I say I can't tell if this is a good or bad flubber. If this list is good or bad flubber, I said, of course, it's good. Said, you forgot Nux on the list. They said, I don't consider Nux a person, which is crazy. Obviously, said, I think Amelie leans more towards woke, though, since she's bi and is great friends with Alejandro, who is a non-binary partner. They say it's a rough draft, heavily subject to change. So, yeah, it seems like this is obviously changing all of the time, and this isn't like exactly a full list. But I did think it was pretty crazy because it seems like recently has just been the I don't know, the year of the list of VTubers, right? For some reason, everybody has just been making lists of VTubers. I don't know why this has become a trend, but it seems like it has, with obviously the first one being this one. And now it's just kind of escalated even further into this entire like color-coded woke to chud list, which I think is pretty funny. But it seems like both sides, in terms of, you know, the chuds and the wokes and the in the middles and the backwards, the forwards, the ups, the downs, they're all kind of, you know, interacting with this post in their own way, and I don't think anybody is really mad at it or anything like that. But again, I do think it is important just to double check if you are using this as any kind of information on a VTuber, do your own research into them first, and then decide whatever it is you want to do, whether it's like block them or you're trying to make a video on them or tweet, whatever. I don't know. But obviously don't use this list as like the most be all and end all, because it's clear that, you know, there are some changes that they need to make, and obviously it's not going to be fully 100% correct, right? And I think it's very obvious for some of the tweets that we have seen that have come out from this. But at the end of the day, I do think it is just a funny thing that has kind of just blown up recently. A lot of people have been responding to it. A lot of people have been putting their own thing, saying, we made it in, lads, we are woke, which I think is quite funny. Said, I'm not a dedicated blank chud on the VTuber list. It's so over. Why even try, bros? Said, taking the engagement bait. Saying, this whole thing is hilariously stupid. Like, watch people you like watching, who gives a about whether they're leaning politically, which again, you know, I think that's fair enough as well. Said, if you need me, I'll be busy, as certified as woke as fuck. Say, am I a chudmin for real, for real? Said, in a world surrounded by woke, be different, be the chud, which obviously, yeah, Powder is surrounded by completely other people, which I think is quite funny. He said, chud pride, that I'm leaning on the chuds and you can't stop me, which I think is quite funny. Say, yo, can I be on the lean chud? Which I think is quite funny. So again, it is crazy. You know, this list just goes on and on. There's so many people on this list that there's been so many people kind of interacting with it, and I think this is why this has done so well on Twitter, right? Because they featured so many different VTubers, big and small, that, you know, there's been so many people replying to it, which of course just further, you know, makes it more popular, right? I think that's very obvious there. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to cover that because that's been a very, very popular thing that has been going on in the space at the moment. And yeah, let me know what you guys think about this list down in the comments, because again, I did find it pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? And yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go over to Game Subs, use my code Kazza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. They've actually got 20% off for the next week now, starting today. So if you guys want to get something, definitely do it now, because you get the most off just using the same code. So yeah, go check that out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.